Well, thank you very much. And there's no better time to be here and talk about finance for development, given everything that's happening. We were just in Washington, D.C. for the spring meetings from the IMF and the World Bank. And what's on everybody's mind is how countries are going to move forward with their development agenda, given the uncertainty that exists and also the growing borrowing costs. And let me here maybe dissect the three questions in one, or package it in one go. First, there's a responsibility for governments. There's cooperation that needs to happen with stakeholders nationally, and also there has to be cooperation with international players. So that's, if I will, a pyramid, given Egypt's history with pyramids, that, or a triangle that is very important. Nationally, it's more important than ever for countries to be very clear with their reform agendas. In order to create more credibility, in order to reduce costs because of the lack of credibility, a clear message on reforms, a clear message on engagement with the private sector comes as a key priority more than ever. The second point is, and all of us know this, the amount of financing we heard in the opening speeches, the amount of financing that's required for the SDGs, for climate action, is quite significant. And the only way to bring this about in countries is through private sector engagement. And that can only happen, again, if governments have clear reform agendas that invite the private sector, but through a competitive environment that is useful. And the third point then comes, how are we going to finance all of this? And many of what was mentioned today, and we've been in this space for some time, the blended instruments, the grant element. But as you rightly pointed out, there is a very tighter space that is happening from official development assistance or also from financing from different institutions. Nonetheless, whenever we are in discussions, what is mentioned is there is supply, but we don't find enough projects where this money can go to. And here comes the importance also of some of the tracks which are mentioned in Seville, which have to do with discussions and cooperation between countries in terms of showcasing how some of them have been able to make use of the very scarce resources that exist to leverage their national agendas. So this is, again, a very important point. In our case, for instance, there's very much commitment in terms of reforms, but there's also clarity with respect to the projects that we want financed in order to close SDG gaps or to bring in more private sector engagement. We have very good relationships with international development banks and multilateral institutions. And in that, it's very important that governments be able to maneuver the different governance of these institutions to maximize the returns of the resources that do exist. So when we say grants for feasibility studies of projects, when we say that the private sector can tap on concessional finance, that is happening through different institutions if governments are clear with what they want and they create the infrastructure for that to happen. When you mention debt, and one of the elements which all of us are facing, particularly in the continent, that a big portion of our deficit goes for interest payments and for debt itself. What is key here, and this is mentioned also in many instances, is domestic resource mobilization. And one of the elements of domestic resource mobilization is capital markets enhancement, so that in many instances you are also able to benefit from many of the assets that do exist. So there's a very detailed reform agenda that can help countries cut costs when it comes to being able to mobilize financing, but also to push forward on development and SDGs. The final word I would say about debt restructuring. Debt swaps have been mentioned extensively. In our case, so we've had debt swaps over the years with some of our bilateral partners. and they have been directed to development projects of mutual interest. And they have been very useful because they are credit positive. So many of the bilateral debt swaps are always taken with less of the anxiety which you see around a common framework or around the private sector restructuring, debt restructuring. Nonetheless, there are many attempts today, and also given what's happening globally, I would say more acceptance of debt swap or debt restructuring in general. Debt swaps being one example. So this is maybe, just to sum up, governments still need to push their reform agendas and be clear about them more now than ever. Number two, that there are many reforms related to domestic resource mobilization that can free some space. The third is IFIs and MDBs are very, very important for mobilizing and providing concessional finance to the private sector, and we have seen it happen. But a lot has to happen on the preparation of projects and technical assistance on what they need to do. And then finally, bilateral debt swaps do matter, have had positive impact, and today more than ever, there is an open window to think about debt restructuring with less of nervousness around markets. Thank you.